Hey everyone, I'm Manar Adli, founder and director of Mint Press News and editor of our video project Behind the Headlines. This decade has felt like a whirlwind, watching in real time the crackdown on independent investigative journalism and alternative voices alike. In the last year alone, Mint Press was banned from PayPal with our balance seized, blocking donations to our website. And as leaked emails reveal, this took place with possible involvement of British intelligence and the US government. At the same time, GoFundMe took down our fundraisers and banned us from their platform. Our journalists have been detained, interrogated, surveilled, canceled, and lobbied against by national security agencies and special interest groups, including directly by the Israel lobby. Our Wikipedia page has been written and managed by a mafia of pro-NATO editors and Israel lobby groups. This in addition to aggressive algorithmic blacklisting by Google's Project Owl and big tech giants shadow banning from the likes of Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok, all of whom we've exposed to have a deep relationship with the military-industrial complex to control your newsfeed and ensure a pro-war narrative is dominant. We wear this as a badge of honor. Now, this is just a taste of what we face as an independent media outlet that has been at the forefront of exposing the profiteers of the permanent war state, holding the military class accountable, and as every journalism outlet should be doing as defined by our First Amendment. Journalism is now being criminalized. This is why we're turning to our readers and supporters to help us sustain our watchdog journalism. While big tech ramp up their efforts to make our journalism algorithmically disappear, we're ramping up our efforts to circumvent this censorship and provide our readers with the most hard-hitting journalism that empowers we, the people. But to continue to do this and keep our investigative journalism free and accessible without a paywall, we're appealing to our readers for their financial support. Now, suffice to say, big governments and corporations aren't exactly banging down our door to support us. We just launched our annual fundraiser to help keep us sustained, and I hope that you'll join us as we continue to fight against the war machine in this information war. Mint Press is one of a handful of independent investigative news outlets left in the United States, featuring some of the most important journalists and activists of our time. This includes investigative journalist, PhD, and author Alan McLeod, who co-hosts the Mintcast podcast with myself. His investigative work has exposed the deep relationship between NATO, weapons manufacturers, and the national security state within big tech, as well as US regime change operation mechanisms against the global South. Rapper and activist for Palestinian human rights, Low-Key, hosts the Watchdog podcast on Mint Press. His research and journalism has exposed how the Israel lobby, its intelligence, and military have inserted themselves into big tech and NGOs to surveil and target pro-Palestine and anti-war dissent. Kit Clarenberg is an investigative journalist whose work explores the role of intelligence services in shaping politics, perceptions, and war policies in the US, UK, and across NATO member nations. Jessica Buxbaum is an investigative journalist based in Jerusalem. She's our Palestine correspondent who has spent the last 5 years uncovering how Israel works with big tech and NGOs to surveil and target Palestinian dissent against apartheid. Mint Press also features weekly columns by renowned documentary filmmaker and investigative journalist John Pilger, Israeli peace activist Miko Peled, and Palestinian academic Dr. Ramzi Baroud. And as for myself, Manar Adli, as the founder and director of Mint Press News, I founded Mint Press over 10 years ago in an effort to revive the Fourth Estate in a post-9/11 world, where our First Amendment was put on life support by the ever-growing military-industrial complex and its connections to the media. Since 2001, we saw major news outlets beat the drums of war to drive public support for the disastrous wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that left millions dead and millions more as refugees. Having lived under Israeli occupation and apartheid as a teenager, I also witnessed horrifying human rights abuses no child should ever have to see. From the New York Times to the Washington Post to MSNBC and CNN, every major news outlet has for decades whitewashed Israeli crimes and apartheid under the banner of democracy and shared values, while dehumanizing Palestinians as mere terrorists, the same way our media dehumanizes the victims of our disastrous wars. This, of course, continues to this day. Now, whether it's the war in Palestine, Yemen, Sudan, or Somalia, or economic sanctions against Iran, Venezuela, or Cuba, or the US proxy war with Russia in Ukraine or against China, It is clear that corporate media act as PR for weapons manufacturers like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon to justify military adventurism and economic warfare to fuel the military-industrial complex that drives our war economy. Thus, Mint Press was born out of this need to provide the public with investigative journalism that holds the ruling class accountable where corporate media have failed. Our journalism gives a voice and spotlight to the people of the Global South ravaged by economic sanctions. We're continuously covering the regime change operations, military coups, and war imposed by the US military, NATO, and their proxies that are lining the pockets of the executives at Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. We've been amplifying the voices of those who are usually silenced by the media, like government whistleblowers and publishers, like Julian Assange and Daniel Hale. But see, this is exactly why we've been targeted and why we can't take Mint Press to the next level without your support. With the war raging on in Ukraine, we've entered wartime and are living in an intellectual no-fly zone, where online censorship of dissenting journalism has become the new norm. And the sanctions regime has come to target independent journalists. But it's up to us to change that reality. We're proud to have broken through the censorship over the years, but it has only been possible through your continued support. No matter the war waged against us, we refuse to be backed into a corner and bullied by big tech giants who have a deep relationship with weapons manufacturers who work hand in hand with NATO that profit off of the blood of millions of people around the world. The only way forward is for all of us to unite on a broader front of nonpartisanship and help fund our own media. There are no governments or corporations who will move in to save us. We are completely dependent on you. So join us in reviving the Fourth Estate and protect our First Amendment. Join our campaign today, live on Indiegogo.